I am curious, what is the story behind the stacked mindset? How can we get one? What is it? What's the story?
How can I get that?
So one of the things, well, first, I want to give a little shout out to my sister. I was asking her for a little help with something formatting on my website about stacked. And so, she's very good with design and things like that. And we're going through that. And at the end of the call, she's like, you do know stacked also means big boobs, right? I was like, yeah, honey, that's why we chose it. That's the title.
Yes. Oh,
So,
she's just looking out. She's just
making sure. So, in any case, the stacked mindset, I think for both me and Joe, is not taking ourselves so seriously. So, and now I want to make it clear that that's about the issues of money can be very serious. Like they can be life and death. They can be like, rent or groceries, like those questions. And that is not something that we ever want to poke fun at. But coming at the issues of money with this sense of like, I can make mistakes and I can find my humor in those mistakes. That is very freeing. So that if you make a mistake where you're in a position where you're like, I am not sure how I'm going to pay for this, that can be very overwhelming. But if you kind of turn it around and say, like, instead of it being like, oh, everything sucks and I'm bad at this, you can be like, wow, I really stepped in it. That's pretty funny. Like there's something hilarious about the fact that, I knew better and I did this anyway. Or, just like stand outside looking in like, wow, that's kind of funny that this person made this decision. And so I tell the story of my biggest money mistake. And it, oddly enough, the money part of it I'd thought through. It's the permanent part that I had not. I got a tattoo when I was 23 years old. And because my grandmother passed away, and I was very sad about that. And so I wanted a teardrop tattoo to remind myself to save my tears for things that mattered, like my grandmother dying, because I had just recently broken up with a guy who was not worthy of me. And I wasted time crying over him and then realized that was a waste of my tears. And so I spent $150 on a tattoo that I couldn't really afford. And like immediately after was like, why did I do that? And so I am being able to laugh at myself and laugh at the situation, which it gets worse. I have permanent body modification.
Oh, but it's much more horrifying.
It gets worse. Because several months later, I learned that among gang members, a teardrop tattoo represents a person you've murdered. So my tattoo indicated that I whacked my grandma.
Oops.
This is ridiculous. Yeah. Like, this is objectively funny. And I felt very a great deal of shame about this for a long time. And getting to the point where I could laugh about this and like look at this objectively funny thing that I did because I didn't think it through. And why I did it and how money was a part of why I did it, because part of my money scripts are that it's important to show your love by sacrificing something. That's something that I feel. And so like, because I had to take money from my grocery budget to be able to pay for this. So I was sacrificing my grocery budget to show how much I loved my grandmother, even though she would have been horrified at the idea of me getting a tattoo, let alone a teardrop
horrified
tattoo.
At the idea of you whacking her. Like, you would have hated that.
Hated that.
And
No, I think it's
that's one of those things where, like, being able to laugh at yourself is just an integral part of being stacked.
Well, and I love that idea because of the fact, like, in this project, a lot of it was written much better in the revisions. And if you think about life, it's not your first time trying to do something where you succeed. It's the third, fourth, fifth time. And if you're able to laugh at those first attempts, that gives you the courage to go try it again. which leads me to the other piece of this I think is important, and it's really where we start our journey in the book, is on, it isn't about the money, it's about organizing your life around things that you value. Like we hear about diversify your investments or have a budget or stay out of debt. It's not about any of that. It's about what do I most want, and then how do I work everything so that I get those things and I eliminate the stuff that I don't want. So we start off with this very simple idea of timelining your goals. Put your goals out, not like a list, but much more like a vision board, where you put them up on a vision board, but against each other, and then you find out what they all cost. And then you'll have these wonderful internal discussions or discussions with people you're planning with about which ones of these are more important than the other. If I've got kids that I want to put through college and I have retirement at X age and I can't get them both when I want them, which one is more important? Maybe junior only pays 50% of college. Or have we even talked about the ROI in our family? Like, why are we just buying into this cultural thing that college is a given in our family? Which is it? I mean, I'm not putting judgment on it either way. I'm just saying I love the fact that you can have these values-based discussions first about what's important to you, and then work the money around that. I think it's less about having more money and more about having more life.
Yeah, that is it. When we think of stacked, we definitely think of either like bosoms or money. And I think being stacked with like things that you love in life is kind of like what we're trying to get across in this show, is the most important things in life cannot be bought. So how do we like organize and stack our finances to be able to get those things? And sometimes those things can't even be bought. You can't even support yourself with money. You have to use time or relationships or something, but focusing on the values-based priorities first, and then also rewriting those quote unquote values that we think we have that are actually these like negative, like money scripts, and like just like doing the hard work of diving in to these things that we've always believed are true and being open to being challenged that they may not be. Like, I love that.
And think about how deep that is, Jen, like how deep some of these conversations, these inner thoughts get. And these are the things people try to avoid, which is why, to Emily's point, you need the humor. Because if you don't have the humor, you're going to go, I don't have time for this discussion today. Like, this is way too flippin' heavy. But if you're like, yeah, hey, guess what? I whacked grandma yesterday. Let's see if we can do better today. Like, you're gonna come at it from a much better angle.
Yeah.
I appreciate the pairing that you're describing here of the mindset, Emily and Joe, some of the tangibles, like you guys both built upon the other, that not taking yourself too seriously, and then having tangible tools like putting a timeline to your goals that both are necessary to come together. I'm curious for both of you in your own selves and then in what you've helped others to do. If someone is finding themselves in that very serious place, how can they not take themselves so seriously? How could they find the humor in it with that internal narrative that's happening?
One of the things for me, it's really helpful to kind of step outside of yourself and look at yourself as you would a friend. And so often that leads to more sympathy and empathy. And so like that's really helpful when you like even talking to yourself in the third person and just be like, like, oh my goodness, I did that. And I'm so stupid, blah, blah, blah. Then think about how you would talk to your sister, your best friend, and say like, no, Emily, you made a mistake because you're human. And then from there, like I will sometimes think about like, how will I tell this story to friends? Like, what will I highlight as the humorous parts? Like, how would other people see this story, if they didn't know me? And being able to do that and kind of that removes the emotional response of shame, because you are focusing on the parts that can be potentially funny, that could be, something that you can find sympathy for, that you would be very sympathetic to if someone you loved were going through that. And that can be really important to getting to the place where you can think a little more rationally about how to solve the problem instead of just beating yourself up and then reacting instead of being proactive.
I I got to admit, but there were times when I really struggled to find the humor. You know, in the mid '90s, my financial situation was just horrible, and there was a day when I was on my way home from an appointment way across Detroit from my house. I had young twins, and my spouse was still in school, and so I was the breadwinner, and I was very much failing, and I ran out of gas. And I realized that I had tapped every relative, every line of credit for money. I had no recourse, and I'm scrounging in my seats to find cash so that I could walk a mile. This sounds like an old guy type. So I walked uphill in driving blizzard. No, but I did. But to walk almost a mile to a marathon station so that I could give this dude 85 like grimy cents from underneath the seats of my rusty minivan. And he didn't want to give me, and I did laugh about this. I cried about my money that night. This is my lowest point. I cried about my money, but at the time I laughed because the dude at the gas station did not want to give me the plastic gas can so that I could fill up my gas tank because he didn't think I was going to bring it back. And I had this laugh, like, are you like, someday this is going to be a phenomenal story because this sucks so bad. Like, I can't be trusted with money at all. And I realized that day that I needed to stop looking at I think a lot of people now are looking at like NFTs or crypto, not in the way that we should. Like, this blockchain stuff is pretty cool and could be great advancements technology wise. But I think we look at it like it's the flipping lottery. Like, I heard this story a couple of days ago about these people that were getting evicted from their house. So they sold a few NFTs and they evaded eviction and ended up with a lot of money. And I think we hear that story and it sends the wrong message. It's a message I had before that day, which was, you know, I got to start surrounding myself with better people. I got to focus on building a foundation. I got to do some of this boring crap that sounds just horrible and long. But what's funny is once I did that, it turned around much quicker. Like, I couldn't believe it once I finally, you know, the 3 pigs build your house out of bricks. Once I did that, man, it got better so much faster.